Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This afternoon I'm going to be doing another movie review, but before I start this review I want to thank you all for your well wishes. Over the past 2 weeks I've been quite ill. I'd lost my voice. I don't know if it was COVID related, but thankfully it's on the mend, and hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll be able to do reviews on a much more consistent basis. So it means a lot that you all had your well wishes, and so yeah, here I am doing more reviews. And so today we're going to be looking at an adventure slash fantasy film from Norway, Norwegian language English subs, released in the year 2022, directed by ViewWorldCinema, and this film is called Troll. So Troll is about a scientist. She's doing these tests on the land in the remote countryside of Norway. The earth is shifting. She doesn't know whether or not an earthquake is coming or in fact it's something else. And so her father, who's a little bit crazy, actually suggests that it dates back thousands of years and it concerns something that's residing in the mountains and that it's woken up. And when it wakes up it's going to create havoc. But she dismisses this as crazy talk. She's embarrassed by what her father is suggesting. But then as the situation progresses, there's more and more evidence to suggest that maybe he's telling the truth, but it may already be too late to stop the impending carnage that is about to be inflicted upon them. So whether or not it is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Troll. This is without a doubt the most anticipated film of 2022, so to say that I was excited to finally be able to watch this film is an understatement. I heard about this movie's existence at the start of the year, but it wasn't until the 1st of this month that it was released. I don't know why it was so long before its release, but I finally got counting down the days to actually watch it, and just before I got sick I managed to finally watch it. And so coming in there with such excitement, I had my fingers crossed that it was going to really elevate itself to the expectations that I had. But unfortunately, this has to be one of the most disappointing films of 2022 for a very simple fact, and that's a fact that I'll go into a little bit later. But what I liked about this movie, and prevents it from being a complete waste of time, is visually it's very interesting. Visually, I thought the detail to the troll was absolutely fantastic, and there were vague sort of elements behind this troll that I thought really gave the folklore a very entertaining sort of value, very reminiscent of the movie The Troll Hunter, which I thought was absolutely fantastic. And that was all about the trolls and the history behind the trolls, and the way it interweaves modern society with the ancient society I thought was really interesting. And so Troll has that very vague sort of interesting value behind this troll, and so when it's wreaking all this havoc, I thought as though, alright, well this is interesting. And so you're marvelling at all the carnage, but at the same time get a little bit of a history lesson behind the folklore. So that was all very good. CGI I thought was fantastic. The acting, for what it was worth, was okay, but unfortunately that's where the positives stop, and this is where the negatives start. This movie suffers from what Americanized monster films suffer from, is that the emphasis is on all of the wrong areas, and the biggest emphasis on this movie is the relationship between the main character and her father and those around her. So the human beings are not what you go into a monster film wanting to watch. You want to watch the monster create as much carnage as possible, but when you see these very uninteresting elements thrown into the film, I felt as though the consistency was non-existent. I thought as though it was very disjointed, because I was always waiting for the next scene with the troll. I didn't care about what was going on. I didn't care about whether or not the city was going to be saved. I just wanted to see the troll, and I wanted to learn a lot more about the troll. But unfortunately there's not enough emphasis on the troll to make it feel as though it was a rewarding experience. You go into a monster film wanting to see the monster, but when you don't see the monster as much as you want, you become frustrated. And this is my frustrations with Godzilla and King Kong and all those monster films that have a very grand sort of scale, and it promises just a lot of fun, but unfortunately taking itself a little bit too seriously for its own good, and it just feels as though things are getting in the way. And unfortunately the relationships in this movie just really got in the way. There's some really silly moments, there are very predictable moments, and it almost felt as though Roald Uthaug has gone away from what made him a Norwegian household name and going into that stereotype sort of generic Hollywood garbage that Michael Bay produces in order to make a quick buck. So if you have on a trailer a big troll, you know it's going to create a lot of interest and a lot of people are going to want to watch it, but unfortunately after you've watched it you realise that the emphasis is on all the wrong areas. Whether it was budget constraints, I don't know, but whenever the troll's on the screen I thought it was good, but unfortunately there's a lot of silliness whenever the troll's not on the screen, which makes you feel very impatient, and I never felt as though I was watching a consistent film. I always felt as though there were moments where I was having a rest in order to try to big myself up for the next scene, and then when the troll's gone you're relaxing again and you just don't really feel as though the time is going anywhere productively. And that is ultimately the biggest criticism I have of Troll, which is the biggest criticism I have of Americanized monster films. And so if you like movies like Godzilla, or you like monster films in general, you're going to like the way that the troll looks. but unfortunately it's too vague. You know, the history behind the Troll is very interesting, but it just doesn't really have a lot of interest in that. It has interest in all the uninteresting areas. And so I don't know why that was, but unfortunately it was a missed opportunity. It is not like Troll Hunter. Troll Hunter was all about the trolls and the folklore and the rules behind all these trolls, which made it so much fun because the people played second fiddle, whereas the people in this movie are definitely the driving force, and unfortunately that's a very weak driving force that makes it a very forgettable experience. So overall for Troll, it promised a lot, but unfortunately delivered very little. I'm only going to give this film 1.5 stars. Alright guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.